Hey everyone, just inviting our guests up the stage. Um,
Hey, Nigel.
Robbie, hey Loren, nice to hear your voice. Let me just
Yes.
find Robbie. There you go.
And
And then let me also
John's
look for
already raised his
Sean.
hand, I see.
There you go. Love it. Cool, cool. How are you today, Loren?
Very well, thank you. Yeah,
Awesome.
Hi
Robbie's
Great to
just
guys.
on his
hear.
way in.
Hey
Hey,
John,
John.
nice to hear you as well.
Yeah, you too. Is my volume okay? Everybody hear me all right?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you very
Excellent.
much. Cool, cool. Robbie, can you please? I've also already invited you as well. Uh-huh. Let me invite you again. Uh,
Oh, I see we have quite a few PlanetQuest community
there you
members
go.
in the
Yes,
audience.
that's quite a lot.
Hello, can people hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
we
Hey,
can
Robbie.
hear you,
Robbie.
Robbie.
Loud
Awesome.
here.
Okay,
Hey,
cool.
everyone.
Let's get this party started. We've created additional announcements to say that we're live. We are recording this AMA, so we will send that recording later tonight after our session. If people have any questions, please put them in the community events text chat. Please start with like the Immutable X logo so that we know that it's a question you want to ask, so we can find it easily later. The host for today will be our very own Robbie, and we'll be talking to Loren and John from the PlanetQuest team. I will leave the introductions of these two very special guests to Robbie later on. Now, with that, I will pass on the spotlight to Robbie. Please take the show.
Hey, everyone. Welcome. I'm really thrilled to spend some time with Loren and John today. They're up to some really exciting stuff, as I'm sure you know. And for those of you who are coming from the IMX community who may not be familiar with them yet, I would love to share a little bit of their background because it's probably not your average crypto founder games background. So I think, Loren, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your first public appearance talking about PlanetQuest. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yes, I believe so.
And I actually think before pretty much this week, you were not even public about your involvement. It was kind of being kept secret. So definitely a well-kept secret. And before everyone piles in, I thought I'd just get the first question in. Loren, you're pretty well known in the space. You're one of the founders and driving forces behind Ember Sword, which is one of the earliest and largest blockchain games. It had over, I think, $250 million committed to its land sale. You founded your first gaming company 20 years ago, and you've got some of the biggest investors in the space following on a journey. So I'd love to know sort of what this game means to you. Why are you deciding to spend your time on PlanetQuest?
All right. Well, I mean, I think if you're asking me that question, Robbie, it kind of cuts to sort of the heart of what I tend to be about, which is that what gives me tons of energy is to bring really great people together, and essentially help them realize their vision and their dreams for something new. And what excites me about PlanetQuest was very much like much like sort of my journey with the team at Embersword started like 4 years ago with friends gathering around a sort of virtual campfire talking about what can still be done in the gaming space. This also very much started as me sitting down with some friends of mine, including John, who's obviously very big in Hollywood, right? And talking about what is the next steps for the evolution of this space, and will we see, for example, for the first time, full entertainment properties the size of Marvel and Star Wars beginning to erupt from a video game, right? Because it's that interactive medium, and how can we make that medium in a new way conducive to building these amazing cinematic experiences that we all know and love. And I think that's kind of where it started out. And then very rapidly, obviously, lots of really great people became involved, and it ballooned into something the size of what it is today.
Yeah, it's funny you mention Marvel and Star Wars because John, I'm pretty sure you've worked on multiple AAA games and also 8 blockbusters. I think you worked on Star Wars and Marvel, if that's right.
So I come from the film background, and what is it now? I've worked on a few AAA games. Actually did a little bit of work on the last Battlefield that came out. But I started my career at Crytek helping out on some Crysis 2 stuff basically. And from there I went into visual effects in films in London. And from there just kept spiraling. And so far I've worked on over 20 Hollywood feature films, including about 3 Star Wars films and 5 Marvel films so far, and the upcoming Batman film, which I'm actually very happy, can't wait to see. So I've
I think many of us with you, John.
It was really good fun to work on that one actually, and so I'm in a very fortunate position as an artist where I've been lucky enough to tick off ambitions that I couldn't have actually dreamed of, to be honest. And so I'm moving into this next phase where I'm trying to take all the experience that I've amassed from the films and try and bring that through the visuals, the design, through the story and the world building into this game and this sort of this project, which is really exciting actually.
And I think you can definitely see that. Guys, before we dive into the proper questions, I did also want to ask a question. Like Loren and John, you're well-known figures in the industry. You've launched one of the biggest blockchain games before this. When you launched PlanetQuest, you didn't A, reveal your involvement, and B, you kind of just did this subtle release with obviously you had this massive sort of viral sharing scheme, which is a really interesting choice. It's a bold choice, and you didn't go all out on marketing. You kind of let it speak for yourself. Why? Can you tell me about the choices behind that?
Yeah, very happy to. And I think John will no doubt chip in a moment too. I think, of course, we're fairly well-known quantities, me within, among other things, blockchain gaming, John within, the movie industry. And there's plenty of people left for us to reveal on the team that would have also made, a big impact if we just threw names around and did a hefty marketing campaign. But I think, this concept and the team around it was also very much rooted in the belief that that is exactly what makes these kinds of properties succeed, right? It's not about big names or large amounts of money or any of that. Like, it is our sincere belief that something that's truly quality and amazing will, on a conceptual level, convince people that it's a great thing. And we really sort of, in that sense, put our money where our mouth is, and chose for this type of launch where we were just, we were really just focused on telling the story of this is what we want to do and accomplish.
Completely. And those stats on Discord numbers are absolutely insane. In fact, I think there are very, very few projects who could claim to the same numbers. So I think it was definitely a successful strategy, guys. And one more thing I'll add that's really exciting is tomorrow, PlanetQuest is going to be releasing their white paper. And so today, Loren and John are going to be sharing a little bit of alpha and delving into some questions and revealing some things that up until now have been secret. So please, in the chat, post questions you want to know. No question is too bold, although I'm sure these two may refuse to answer some. And let's get started. So I think let's start with the one that everyone will be asking about. What is this game going to be like? Is it web? Is it console? What is the gameplay going to be like?
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to delve into that a little bit, of course, and we've let go of a little bit in our FAQ, but maybe we can delve a little deeper today. As a game, first of all, it's starting out as something that can run directly in your web browser, but obviously it's also something we can take to native clients in PC and mobile. It's something to do with the fact that we want to lift as many barriers as possible to allow people globally to enjoy it. Now, delving maybe a little bit deeper into the gameplay, and bear in mind, obviously, we're not there yet, right? It's going to be a while before we start showing that end of things. We're currently just at the stage where, and then we'll delve into that a bit later, I'm sure, where we're getting ready for our first Planet sale. So if you look at the gameplay of what we're building here, it is essentially a game of exploration and survival that takes place from, you know, the type of perspective that you would have in what's typically a MOBA, like, you know, Dota or League of Legends. But at the same time, it functions more like a shooter, complemented with abilities. So it's almost, to some extent, although, you know, still very different. You could say that, you know, in terms of abilities, it has elements that one would remember from games like Overwatch. You know, the notion of deploying shields and or you know, a Team Fortress cloaking, things like that. While it's played from a more top-down perspective, and the game basically sees players teleport their way down onto, you know, vast amounts of completely unique planets where they'll be going on missions, either cooperatively or in a versus mode where they're competing with other factions that have also landed on this planet. And, you know, they're vying to find these incredibly valuable artifacts, which are also NFTs. They're looking for quantum, which, you know, also happens to be our ERC20 token, but is, you know, essentially the most valuable resource in our universe. And if you look at, you know, maybe because this leads into more questions, no doubt, right? And if you look at how is it experienced from a point of view of sort of customization, are there characters, are there classes, things like that? Actually, the whole sort of configuration of how you experience the game is gear based. So it's what you equip that determines what type of role you'll play. So before going down on the planet, it might be helpful to kind of synchronize a little bit over who is going to, you know, if you're going as a team, who's going to be, you know, dealing with heavy weaponry, or versus who is, you know, maybe going to go do scouting duty. So that I think touches on a lot of elements, and some of which we haven't really revealed yet, and I'm sure we'll give rise to some questions later on in this session.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, Loren. And John, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I guess what I would add to that is like from the art and the design sort of standpoint, one of the exciting things about this project for me is the differentiating the three factions and the three sort of cultures in every conceivable aspect between these factions that we play as in game. I always love like the way, like, you know, like my crude example is like in Street Fighter, how is if you do a special move, there's always like a sort of balancing move on from any other player that would neutralize that. So there's that balancing aspect. But from a visual standpoint, it's like we are pushing the contrasts and the differences between these factions as much as possible. So I've already alluded this with some other people before, but like I guess I'll go over it again here. Is like, for example, so this is like a very sort of still 30,000 foot sort of top tier level idea in terms of weaponry. But let's say, for example, where one of our factions, which is the Empire, the idea would be is that their sort of science fiction would be that they've mastered things like quantum technology. So maybe they can create a black hole instead of a grenade, you know. So there's like these atomic warping kind of designs to the way that they fight. The Federation would be probably based more in what is quite familiar to us in sort of like laser blasters, holograms, and nanobots and things like this, because they're like this sleek sci-fi. And then in the Union, they may be like the traditional like artillery, like actual bullets and actual grenades and explosions and things like this. So because they're like more resourceful and more scrappy kind of. So there's these really. There'll be these very strong visual motifs between the factions, you know, right down to the weaponry. Not only like the gear, the suits, but like the weaponry, the way that looks, and the way that manifests in the game, which is what I love the most, is world building these different cultures. So,
yeah, very true. And I think what's also interesting is, like, you know, just before everyone thinks, oh, that sounds horribly polarized, and like, these two factions must be at like immense odds with each other. But that's actually not the case, right? Because there is sort of, a admittedly fragile but peace and this universe council which is governing known space. So there's actually free trading between these factions. So you might well, find some union member obtaining one of these empire grenades and chucking it at you. So yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. It's not it's not a black and white thing at the same time.
That's awesome, and I just chucked a link, John, to your some of your concept artwork, which is just incredible. I mean, Villeneuve is actually one of my favorite directors. I just watched. What did he just release? Not Blade Runner, but Dune. Yeah, of course. Which is stunning.
The guy is a master, and he's actually a really nice guy.
That's quite rare at a film auteurs, I hear.
It is incredibly rare.
Awesome. So I think the thing everyone wants to know about, the white paper is coming out tomorrow. Can we get some juicy alpha? Loren, I hear you are currently drinking a little bit of Earl Grey tea.
He's off the tea wagon.
Yes. I think I already informed our community that I had like a big jug of tea ready for this. So so a couple of things to drop. I even saw it come by in the chat already. Like I don't think we've ever like fully 100% disclosed this. We may have dropped some hints at it, but like for example, our white paper goes into what are our NFTs, and our NFTs are not just planets. But actually, our NFTs include guilds, which are different for every faction. For example, in the Empire, they are houses, and in the Federation, they are corporations, right? And these are NFTs themselves that can unite multiple planets of that faction underneath them, right? So really, that is all on chain, and there is a whole sort of economical model integrated therein. So, like, guilds are a native part of the game, and then we've got gear. Right? All our gear is actually NFTs. I can, confirm that now, barring some, light, let's say consumables and such, and some things that we might not put on the chain right away, just to kind of, keep things somewhat sensible, because, things that you pop, 10 in a mission might be a bit too crazy, or bullets that you shoot don't necessarily need to be NFTs. But, it's for a large part also thanks to innovations like Immutable and Starkware, right, that are helping us push this level of transactions where all of this stuff, all of this gear can be NFTs, right? And in fact, actually, as you'll find in the white paper, you also see there is a whole sort of inflationary and deflationary economy behind this gear, where if gear is no longer useful to you, you can strip it for parts, and you can use those parts to build, again, better, more rare gear, higher tier gear, right? Use sort of, whatever common weaponry you've got left, strip it for parts and get yourself a rare weapon, right? So this is really cool. I'll delve a little bit deeper just because I can, right? Like, it even goes so far as that the lending out of gear, and we'll have some really cool announcements, partnership announcements and things on that soon. The lending out of gear is built into the game. So you can literally say, oh, I'm not using this. Why not let the game lend it out to people in the, in sort of the universal armory? So that's actually a really cool notion that also allows us to bring people into the game and have them use actual NFTs without actually having to go out and buy them, and use the earnings from what they're doing in terms of tokens to then get their hands on some of their own gear. So that's definitely something I think, like, these are very, very key points. And then the fourth thing, which we've hinted at occasionally, and I now do want to reveal that a little more before we go, and release the white paper, at which point you'll also see that is artifacts. Our sort of fourth category of NFTs are these artifacts that are left by this sort of long gone mysterious alien race. And they are actually also where we first found this quantum, right? Quantum is sort of the energy that powers them, and is around wherever this alien civilization has been. And they've been in a lot of places, apparently. But these artifacts, they are very, very special. And, oftentimes you would never find a whole one. You might find fragments thereof that you can later assemble into one, because these are incredibly valuable and incredibly rare. And they actually have like planet affecting impact. So you can get these. And if you can, get an artifact, get sufficient quantum, activate it on a planet, it can have like planet altering consequences. I don't want to delve too deeply because I'd be spoiling the storyline by giving too much away. But these go very, very far. I'll tell you how far they go without spoiling the storyline, which that is an artifact I can reveal. It's like probably the most rare artifact in the entire universe is a terraforming artifact. And that terraforming artifact literally gives you access to the same systems that were used to generate the original planet, and has you pushing the dials of, oh, I want to change my planet around. Maybe add some more water, change the temperature a bit, and bump the planet up, and essentially like an entire rarity level.
Fun. Yeah, guys, I mean, that's insane. I think it's continued to escalate into literally the most awesome sounding things I've heard. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's unreal. Sorry, John, you go ahead. I meant to cut you off.
I was just going to say, we're going to have to stop Loren talking now, Robbie.
Yeah, guys, you've given us enough alpha for the next year.
Take him away.
Yeah, if I put any more in,
that's awesome. And going off the back of that, what are you really excited about in the near future? So, like, let's say the next 2 to 3 months.
Oh, you want to go first, John?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm looking forward to all the months coming up, but we're sort of like, we're building up the crew. We're finding some good talent. Again, like the audience being interested in it. There's a lot of artists as well that can see the potential of working on it as well. So I'm really excited about that. I can't wait for people to see the planets, because we've done some in actually a very short space of time. We've done some really beautiful and real levels of the quality of the planet designs as well. Because one thing for me, and this is like, if you imagine that, like, I'm like the yin to Loren's yang, right? Where Loren's got all this sort of clear coding experience and the business experience, and that the ability for us to actually get the right people to create such ambitious, because we're going to create a lot of planets, right? So on one hand, we need the expertise of generating that much with the procedural and the algorithm sort of system and engine. But then where I'm coming from is that I still want each and every planet to be unique and special and beautiful in its own right, so that when people are buying a planet, they know that there is no other planet in all of the galaxies that will look exactly like their planet. So we've actually had a very artistic and creative development of this Genesis engine to create these planets, and some of the results that are coming out now are beautiful to look at, and I'm really excited for people to start seeing those, how that's manifested, is they're going to look really nice. So yeah, and all the other stuff.
Yeah. No, but I can definitely echo John's excitement, having seen sort of the team working at the generation of these planets. And we're now running the technology that basically generates the planets as seen from orbit, right? And we've released so far 2 planet classes on our blog, just because I took another sip of tea. Let me tell you, there's 6 6 classes that we're going to be revealing, so there's 4 more coming. And that's going to be amazing, and that will be capped off by the opening of our planet sale, which will not leak too many details on right now, but it is truly amazing to see what sort of the team has put together in terms of this combination of say artists created elements and details being used in combination with procedural generation and natural laws and things like that to create not just, a planet, right? But a unique planet, not just, 100 or 1,000, but literally to the capability level of generating tens upon thousands of, these utterly unique planets in all sorts of, different classes as you've heard, right? But also to take that one step further and make it so that this is an NFT you can own and open up in the browser, right? So it's not just a planet, oh yeah, this is neat, here's a picture. No, you click into that thing, right? You can have a link, you can send it to your friend, right? And pretty much even on his grandma's potato laptop within less than 10 seconds. And this is the potato laptop I'm talking, right? A modern PC will be like a second or so. They'll be looking at that planet in full 3D from orbit, which is just, amazing. It's such a cool experience to get to see and do that. And, obviously the team is showing that to us on a weekly basis, how that's advancing, and just super excited to finally have our audience get their hands on that.
Yeah, and I personally, as you probably heard me talk about, I'm incredibly excited about the potential of user-generated content when partnered with NFTs to create these incredibly powerful sort of economies. In fact, if you look at the fastest growing gaming economies, they are these kind of platforms that leverage UGC. And now you have the incredible power of real economic incentives from NFTs in empowering it. Loren and John, I'd love to ask you, what's the big goal for 2022?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, the big goal for 2022 is for us to grow out the community, together with the community, because we have this unique thing called distributed storyline or decentralized storyline, right, where the community votes, to build out the storyline on the way to the game launch, or at least the launch of our alpha, right, and to already distribute those first sets of NFTs through sales that will have everyone ready to kind of touch down. And I think probably the crowning achievement, without promising too much, but probably the crowning achievement on 2022 will be giving people a first sort of taste of pre-alpha, of what it's going to be like to not just see these planets from orbit, but make your way down and see them on a surface level and explore the sort of wealth of flora and fauna and amazing things that fill these worlds.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. I would on a bit of a tangent, on a bit of a side note, not only everything that Loren just mentioned there, obviously, but from the art side of the world, by that point, having so much beautiful artwork to look at that we can almost already get some sort of art book going, and even a sort of soundtrack going, because part of my enjoyment of games and films is that in a way they are a vehicle of putting a new art book on my shelf or a new soundtrack to listen to as well. So there's all these other things as well, like these secondary ancillary kind of aspects to it as well, that I'm excited about.
Yeah. No, it's very true, John, because, without delving too deeply into it, it is already sort of our expectation that those first strides into becoming eventually that cinematic multiverse will already be happening even in the upcoming year. So that's something that I think we're all very, very excited about.
Yeah, someone has commented here, PlanetQuest art book. Any leaks on that, guys? Is that something in the works?
Not yet, but I would love to have a kind of art book. Absolutely.
I will be the first buyer. And Loren, you actually mentioned something cool there, which I want to dive into a bit more, which is you mentioned this decentralized storyline. Why does that matter? What's this going to enable? Just talk to me about it.
Right. So I think, first of all, it's a philosophical thing, right? So the philosophical thing is that people have never, and it's also technology has not enabled it until now, been able to help truly shape the evolution of like entertainment properties. Like, it wasn't like when Spider-Man came around or the Marvel Universe came around that people had any semblance of sense of ownership in it. It's a really amazing universe, and people became fans of it and fell in love with it, right? But they couldn't be part of that decision tree of how that story evolves. And we set, in that sense, a very it's almost like taking a risk on the people that you're doing this with, where you're saying, okay, what can we do to make them part of the storyline and make them actually decide how it flows, and then transition from just a game into an entire cinematic multiverse where you've got this amazing base of people that didn't just see it when it was originally a comic book or when it was originally a game or when it was originally a story in the Discord, but knew they were there when the vote was held that determined which way things go. And that's sort of also how the universe was designed, of course, around that notion. We have this thing called the Universe Council, and because of that vehicle, we can throw every week the next evolution, the next step in the storyline to the players for a vote, and they're literally determining some really, really impactful things like life and death decisions, universe impacting decisions over time in these storylines, and they go quite far. So that's number one, sort of this notion of actually sharing ownership of how the story evolves with people. And I think we've all seen I love, for example, Mass Effect, right? But we've all experienced the ending of Mass Effect, particularly Mass Effect 3 I'm talking about here, right? This probably one of the best game of all time, probably one of the worst game endings, right? And we just feel like if we can make the community part of this journey, you will not have that type of disappointment because you've given so much more agency. At least, this is our theory. And then finally, and probably just as important to the people playing the game, right? These decisions give us a way, right, to every week keep the gameplay, because as we transition from this Discord experience to the game itself, right, we're going to basically see those votes and that storyline continue to shape the universe, and have those decisions actually have effect on gameplay on a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, right? So it's also about creating a living universe and people experiencing things that they actually voted for.
You go for John.
I'll just add to what Loren says as well there. It's a really unique thing that I've not really interacted with before, like especially in the Discord and things like this. But it has become way more addictive than I expected it would. where I've said this to many people as well, members who are from PlanetQuest here today. Like the highlight of my week is the votes count, like the vote results that come in on Friday, because I've no idea which way it's going to go, and I watch all the conversations, and I'd love to join in, but I can't, obviously. But it's absolutely fascinating, and it's kind of addictive, and it gives the project like real meaning, where people, one of the sort of core ideas behind the project itself as well is this ideological and philosophical / political aspect to it. It's a strong theme throughout the project, and watching people like debate the pros and cons, the pluses and the minuses of this action, noticing little clues left in the story that could impact some other thing, and then discussing it and arguing about it. That's fascinating to me, and it's become really addictive and the highlight of my week, basically. So yeah, I just love watching that.
Yeah, I think for many a team member, it's really become the moment where
it's Friday night, guys.
The
results are going to be in an hour.
Yeah. I've seen some team members like literally be up because they're in different time zones, and we have team all around the world, right? And then just see them be online at like some ungodly hour just because they wanted to know how the story would go.
That's awesome to hear, guys. I think there's been a ton of questions from the community. I have like 40 in this document right now. So I'm happy to take your lead. Would you rather read some out from kind of the Discord and pick what you guys want to answer, or do you want to pick a few?
Oh no, I think there's lots of great questions. I mean, maybe you can pick a few that you find interesting, and we'll see if we can. Yep. We might not be able to answer all of them, but
I've seen
we'll
a
keep
few
it as honest as we can.
Which is, could the community get a hint at the utility of the insignias? What are they going to be used for?
Right. Yes, this is the big the big mystery surrounding the insignias, and this is the big mystery surrounding the insignias. I can tell you that the white paper won't clear it up for you yet, but I can also tell you that probably a week to 2 weeks after that, we're going to be releasing the first information as to the first benefits of the insignias. For those that are new to the project, by the way, the insignias are what you get when you actually join the PlanetQuest community. And we gave away, a whole set of them at differing rarities. So there's 100 of these insignias for each faction at the legendary level, and then 1,000 at the epic, etc., etc. And yeah, it's been actually really, really amazing seeing, people snap these up, but also seeing sort of how they're already getting traded, and just the sheer volume in the market off of just these insignias. It's been pretty crazy. But yes, the line has been sort of held already. It's insignias will give you differing utility over the period on towards the game launch. They'll also give you obviously massive bragging rights post game launch, because there is even with all the common ones when they're all minted, and by the way, we're starting to get there, right? The community just keeps growing, but even when all the common ones will have been minted, we're looking at 333,300 insignias in total. And I can definitely give away that is significantly less than the number of players we expect in this
exactly. Awesome. So the next question comes from Lim on SVH, which is, how do they get into the pre-alpha test? How can people get access to this thing?
Right. Well, pre-alpha test, I can kind of already give away. That will be based on ownership of NFTs, right? So pre-alpha, which by the way, again, we're hoping to put that down towards the end of this year, right? Will be something that will focus around the ownership of NFTs. And it's true, we might not be able to obviously let all the NFT owners in. So you can imagine there's some bars as to what NFT you hold that we might have to put into place, or we might have to circulate a bit and decide who can go in when. Because with 300,000 people holding, for example, a common insignia, it's letting them all in at once in pre-alpha might not be lead to the best results.
Yeah, and by the way, that number is insane. So the next question from Maxim comes: is it possible to evolve or terraform a planet in the game? So could you transfer a planet from a desert class to an icy one or a fast one?
So we will. The classes are pretty determinate, right? So whether or not you might be able to go cross-class with a terraforming artifact, that is a decision we haven't taken yet, to be honest, right? We know that with a terraforming artifact, you'll be able to affect sort of everything else about the planet itself, right? But whether or not you'll be able to make a change class, that's still a question to be answered.
Awesome.
But, first you'll have to get your hands on an actual planet terraforming artifact. And I mean, we're really, really talking something extremely rare here.
How rare?
So I don't want to. Well, the thing is with PlanetQuest, we try to take a very sort of holistic approach to the quantities of things, right? So a lot of these things, their quantities are in relation to the active player base. Because we don't believe in only putting X out and then having atmospherically insane inflation, right? We will generally choose to, when we're selling something into the community, we'll generally choose to sell it in such a way that we know it's going to be great value for the community, right? but at the same time also making sure that we don't go so low in the quantities versus the actual player base that no one can have a thing, right? Because that gets a little bit too crazy, and I think leads to, let's say, game economies that over time are eventually like they're not sustainable anymore. It's just something we want to avoid, and we'll give more details on that actually as we go, because we also have coming up very soon the minting of additional rewards that are on the passports that all of our explorers have currently. All of the members of our Discord and members of our community essentially that signed up have a passport, and they can gather points by participating in the community, joining in and voting on the storyline, etc. And quite a few of them have already earned some pretty cool NFTs by doing so, which we have not minted yet. And this is part of sort of our transparent approach is like, before we will even mint those, we're going to also tell you about the expected sort of sales price of those, both prior to release and also after release. So you kind of have an understanding of what it is that you're dropping, right? I've had these conversations with the community where I've said, we're not worried about insignias right now, because we know that, everyone that sort of obtained an insignia according to us, they'll be super happy with, the value that they're getting for what they're getting. But you can't do that for everything, right? It gets really complex if you drop, let's say, a pack of gear and people start speculating over what it's worth. And, maybe because, we see people get like super enthusiastic about this, maybe they'll completely, knock the value out of the park and go like beyond what could make sense for gameplay, right? So I want to make sure that we're sort of helping people that kind of, okay, what is this thing roughly worth? So we don't get anyone being disappointed afterwards, either because they sold something that they received as a reward and feel like they sold it for a trifle and it's now super valuable, or because they bought things at a price that is well beyond what it might cost in retail, right? I think one of the core principles of any sort of great blockchain game approach is the community always needs to win. And that means, like, when you're getting in, you're becoming a part of the game, of the universe, of the process, right? And that means we need to help you get in such a way, especially people that are getting in earlier, et cetera, help you get in such a way that when you're getting in, when you get the opportunity to get in, because there's oftentimes way more demand than there is supply, right? That getting in a good way is generating value for you. And at the same time, no crazy economic stuff happens.
And just quickly on that one, Loren, how long will the incentive system in the passport last?
Yes. We have not officially announced how long it will last exactly, I believe. But our expectation is that it's still going to last for quite a while, right? So we've definitely, I won't say that it will last all the way till alpha release, right? There's going to be some point where we'll announce, okay, this is the point where we will flip that off. Right, but it's definitely it's not going away anytime soon. So there's still plenty of time for people to basically gather points and earn really, really awesome rewards. And for those of you not in the community, that literally goes all the way up to an epic planet. Although admittedly, achieving that would be pretty tough. But there's some very there's also some rewards that are just. And this was kind of also our way of sort of making the community part of this journey, right? There are enough rewards at a level of like points that is achievable by any community member that is just participating, voting, being helpful in the community, etc. That at least everyone who's part of this community now and joins this community in the next quarter or so, right? They could already have sort of the basic gear they need to play the game. Right, all to themselves, just because of being part of the community and contributing and adding value with these other community members. And I think that's really cool. And to be honest, I think we even if we weren't doing this type of approach to things, it would still be just as crazy. I mean, we announced with barely hinting at some rewards that. Because there were so many people asking us if they if they could help in some way, because we just get lots of like community volunteers that do awesome events and other stuff. We couldn't almost track it anymore, so we had to set up a program for that. It's just our ambassador program now, and set that up and then announced it, and the community team did a good job on kind of putting that up. But one of their choices was like, oh yeah, let's just do a Notion form, because we can probably handle this manually. I mean, it's probably going to be like a few hundred people, right? And then in a few days we had over 3,000 people volunteer to become ambassadors and create content, and it's amazing. They've been like, we literally like community members composing music, making video about Planet Quest, making kick-ass memes, translating into countless languages. Like, literally everything we put out is being translated to Russian and Japanese and so many other languages. It's just been amazing, and it's all just because of community enthusiasm, right? And all this started happening before there was even any reward for these people in doing this. Just, they loved what was being put out, and they wanted to make sure that those members in their community that didn't speak English would also have access to it.
Yeah, I think I would add to that as well, saying that I've never seen anything like this before, where the community has been so engaged and also contribute and create essentially a subculture in itself of Planet Quest, where it's becoming its own organic culture, with so much goodwill and inspiring ideas, like the amount of creative writing that's already been done for it, just because people are inspired by the concept. And as Loren says there, like original pieces of music that people are inspired by, and artwork, and some genius memes, by the way, which kill me. So yeah, I've never seen anything like that, and that is really heartening to see that, and it makes you, it shows you that you're doing something that is connecting with people on an emotional level and giving some meaning into like people's entertainment, because it's bringing lots and lots of people and new friends together, which is always healthy and inspiring. So it's amazing to see, really.
I'd love to next. There's a question in the community. That is the main aim of the game going to be battling on planets, or will it be more exploratory, sort of like No Man's Sky, where you're going to be acquiring ships and the likes?
Right. So, I mean, it's a two-part answer to some extent, right? We're looking to build eventually a cinematic multiverse where, there might be many game aspects to it. So eventually it may well happen that we take to space. I think it's eventually unavoidable. But there's also, sort of the shorter term of like, what are we building now, right? And what we're building now is very much focused on sort of these away missions, if you will, on planets, right? That sport sort of a blend of exploration, survival, discovery, but also obviously a fair amount of conflict as you go, and that's really sort of the core, the meat of the gameplay, if you will, right now.
And then I like this question. The planets are procedurally generated, so is it correct that there are an infinite number of planets?
Well, certainly we have the capability to generate an infinite number of planets, but the number of planets will very much relate to the size of the player base. So we have some plans and objectives in mind as to, for example, likely before this year is out, we will put out enough planets to sustain a player base of around 300,000 players when we launch. But then, afterwards, there'll probably be far, far more players that want to come in. And so at that point, essentially, the ability we have is to generate new galaxies that are discovered as part of, I won't get too deep into that, otherwise I'm I'm ruining plot lines.
What was my
Sorry, Loren. yes, yeah, exactly. No, yeah, cut the mic before the members in our team and our lore writer and other people kill me over it. But the reality is sort of like, we have this capability to open up new galaxies as there is need for home planets for these players. So that's kind of how we will scale things out as we go. And it, at the same time gives us a good level of control to make sure that for the amount of players that we have, that they're having a great gameplay experience, and that we don't need to rush and scale beyond that too quickly, that, people will maybe have a lesser experience because we're onboarding too many people too fast. We're more about making sure that everyone who comes in has a great experience, and less so about making sure that we can immediately just pile in 10 million people.
Yeah, completely. And I think this is exactly the right approach. I mean, it's the approach we use in Gods Unchained, which is if you fix the number of assets that you have without looking at your player base, you've just ruined your ability to have a true economy. Like, people can't get the items they need access to. So I really appreciate it, and I think that's the right approach, guys. I think we're nearly up time, so I wanted to leave it with you both. Is there anything else you want to leave the community with today?
I'm just looking through the chat, seeing if there's like key questions that need to be answered in some way still. But that's probably my tea talking, right? So I should be wary and not give away much more. I think, from my end, it's just few notes, seeing sort of the community and how it has grown and gotten so involved into what we're doing, and seeing sort of the dynamism between the team and the community that we built is just a really, really great thing. I think John touched upon it. It's super heartening, right? And I just wanted to express that, to all of you, because my passion is obviously bringing together really great people, and helping them, supporting them to change the world in some way, right? In this case, by bringing a whole new sort of class of gaming into it, with a whole universe to boot that's going to go far beyond it. And it's really great to see that sort of engine to start running, where the team that's been put together is feeding off the energy of the community, and vice versa. And that's one of the things I find so super encouraging about this space in general. It's just, yes, this space is still young, right? And there's going to be traditional players that are going to come into it and maybe make some mistakes in how they're treating it because they don't quite understand it yet. And there's people that don't understand this space yet. But for those that already do and are already part of it and kind of see sort of the inevitable conclusion of where this is going and how many great things that'll do for us all, this is such a can be such a warm and amazing and welcoming space. And that, I think, is one of the things that helps sort of drive teams and drives people like John, right, to want to literally pack their bags off of Hollywood and working on Batman and and Star Wars and Marvel, right, and go where they can create sort of almost in the public eye, together with a community that is also understanding of sort of that process. And it takes very good community management to make sure that you communicate well about it. But I think when you do, it's so empowering. It's so different from just being part of a machine that has to output a product and then throws it out there to the people, and boom, that's it, right? And there is zero value sharing with the people in the community, and there is sort of zero co-creation. And I think that's probably what I leave on as a note on my end, that has been so super encouraging to see. And I hope to just continue to see that build as we slowly begin to take over the world of traditional games and movies and comic books
just
and TV series.
The world, Loren. just yeah, I would echo all of those sentiments, obviously. For me, it's the amount of goodwill and the amount of trust and the amount of positivity that is organically coming from the community itself, and within the team as well. it feels like we are sort of finding water in a desert, where we're all searching, like me personally as well. It's like there's a lot of desert everywhere, and we're finding somewhere that's an oasis. And there's so much, like I say, so much goodwill and positivity that it has more effect than people may realize it does. It really validates and legitimizes your intentions and your goals. And yeah, everybody, the whole community, like what some people have, the way people are forming natural leaderships and taking care of their factions and things like this is incredible to see. And it's all happening in real time. And as Loren said there, it's such a new sort of frontier that we're on in terms of technology and gameplay and the integration of that in the future of internet technology. It's pretty. We're right at the edge, which is crazy exciting. So I think I'll only leave with that, and just to thank you all.
It's an amazing message to end on, guys. I'll add on something from my end, which is, I've worked with a lot of gaming partners over the years that we've been building this inside crypto, and there are very few people who get the importance of tokenomics and community in crypto, as well as have multiple decades of experience of building large games. And I think Loren and the team has built here are some of the most credible and really long-term oriented and high integrity people that I've worked in the space. So I think this AMA is a testament to just how open and community driven they're making this game. And I'm really excited to see where this kind of grows on Immutable. And to all of the PlanetQuest fans, also welcome to the Immutable X community. We're really thrilled to have you on board and to help grow this thing together.
Oh, that's heartwarming. Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie. Much appreciated.
Awesome. I think that's it for time, but this is a pleasure. I think one of the best AMAs we've had in terms of community response. So we'd love to have you guys back soon.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
We'll definitely make that happen.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.